This is a bit of an experiment. I am working on an I-cord edged double knit vest at the moment, and the aim of the game is all the edges will be finished as I work the project. And now I've got to find a way across the armholes. The first step is to divide the 11 pairs under the arm and put them onto two separate threads, because this is going to be the equivalent of the cast off under the arm. So I'm going to do this by slipping the 2 layers of stitches onto different needles. I call these receiving needles because they receive the stitches of the double knitting. So I'm taking a front stitch or near stitch and a far stitch, near, far, until I've completed all 11 of them. So there are my 2 layers, my near layer, my far layer, and I've taken 11 pairs of stitches off the needle. So those are just going to be put out of the way to be the centre back. And I'm going to put those onto a thread to hold them until I'm ready to fasten them to my finish at the underarm. So I'm just going to put a piece of yarn through each set of stitches. That's the front ones. And the back ones, near or far, whatever you want to call them. I cut the yarn halfway. I don't think I need to tie it, but I could if I felt anxious about them. So my stitches are now secure and ready for me to use later. I can also be a bit lazier and daring and separate the layers as I go. So I'm just picking out the front or near layer stitches. It's a very docile yarn and it's been knit for a while, so it shouldn't go anywhere. And then I'll take the far layer stitches. So both armhole openings are now complete. And now I'm going to build a bridge across the armhole. Ahead of time, I have made this little piece of 4-stitch I-cord. I've cast on with white waste yarn, and then I've worked 14 rows of I-cord. And this is going to be what I'm going to use to build a bridge across the armhole. And my intention is to take these front stitches and graft them to a column across the I-cord, and then on the other side I'll do the same with the other layer of stitches, and that will give me a matching I-cord under the arm, and also it'll give me the start of the I-cord to go up the side of the armhole. I'm going to snip away the bit of waste yarn at the start of this I-cord, and that should leave me with 4 stitches visible. So there are my 4 I-cord stitches. And because this was the cast on end, the tail is actually projecting through one of the stitches, so I'll just pull that through. And now I can pick up these 4 stitches and incorporate them when I start this next row across the back of the vest. I've got my yarns ready to begin the first row across the back. And and I'm going to slip the 4 stitches onto the end of that needle and begin my first row across the back. I'm not going to worry about treating this as I-cord yet. To work the first 4 stitches in black. Apologies for the dripping noises coming from my herbs that are being watered right next to us. And now I'm going into double knitting. So I'm going to just take my purple yarn, work with both of these, and I will complete my first row across the back of the vest. Now that I've reached the second side of the centre back, I can incorporate the separate piece of I-cord, and now I can continue working up the armholes with the I-cord at both edges without interrupting the sides of the knitting. Having worked a part of the back of the vest and a part of the front of the vest using the connecting piece of I-cord, I can now join this to the piece of I-cord on both sides. I'm going to graft it along a column of stitches. And so to begin, I go into my first stitch from the back to the front and remove the holding yarn from it, and then pick a bar on the I-cord. So there's 1 bar there between stitches, then back into the front of that stitch, into the back of the next stitch. So as they're sitting right now, purlwise, that would be. Into the bar, staying in the same column of stitches, but into the bar, back into the front of that stitch, and I can take the holding yarn out. I know the colours aren't ideal, but I think you'll get the principle here. Having exited the I-cord, I go back into the stitch I last exited from front to back and purlwise into the next stitch. This is assuming normally mounted stitches. Then I come to the I-cord again, and I had 14 rows of I-cord and it's fastened at both ends, so I have at least 16 bars available to me. So every now and again, as I have only 11 pairs to graft to it, I can go under 2 bars in the I-cord, and I'm trying to make sure that I spread it out to get it evenly extended under the armhole. So the colour combinations in a real life situation don't always lend themselves to the best filming, but there are clearer, larger demonstrations of grafting on the grafting playlist on my YouTube channel. You could also apply a piece of waste yarn to these stitches if you felt that made you more comfortable. But with double knitting, it's harder to use the waste yarn on the second side, but nothing to stop you use it on the first side. Into the last stitch. I'm fairly nicely spread out along there. I'm pulling my stitches to the same size and shape as the rest of the stitches in the project. Go back into that last stitch one more time and leave my tails on the public side for now until I'm ready to hide them. Now we'll turn over and do the other side. This side might show a little better because we've got more contrasting stitches. You can see the heads of the stitches on the other side, and we do just the same again. And we pick another column of position that we can follow all the way along. So I think I'm going to start here. Back into the stitch you came from, purlwise into the next one, remove the fluff, find another bar, and so we work our way along. And it doesn't matter if you don't position your needle in the I-cord exactly perfectly, as long as you get hold of a bit of something and try and stay in the same column. The column will twist around slightly because of using the two different ends. That will be because the Australian cousin stitches are slightly out of alignment, half a column out of alignment with the regular direction stitches. But it really doesn't matter in the underarm position. As long as you catch each of the stitches on the underside, everything will be fine. Now all that remains is to hide these ends with a duplicate stitch and then take the tails away in between the layers. And this is what a finished underarm looks like using this technique.